I was just getting overwhelmed with so many things racing in my brain, and over here it was very hard to focus because we had so many projects happening here. And I'm going to be focusing a lot on building the online community and connecting with other groups. So that's going to be really exciting because that's kind of what I've been wanting to do for 10 years. And I've really been focusing on the financial side and trying to get the money going. So we haven't quite succeeded fully on the money side because we want our volunteers to actually be able to all leave their jobs, and anyone who wants to get involved bit by bit as we grow, as we start to sell our remedy range in lots of health food stores across Australia and then start exporting, we can just keep on bringing more people on board full-time, being involved with what we're doing. I mean, my goal is that there'll be thousands of us, all around the world, and all having a beautiful livelihood, just giving a beautiful life to each other, but focusing on our children, because we all know if our children are happy and well and we feel comfortable that their future is secured and beautiful, then life's just amazing. If things are good for them, then things are good for us. If we're stressed or worried about our children's future, you're really not going to be enjoying. Okay, let's do the clap, please. That wasn't the intro clap, that was just a technical clap. Great. So, I've a friend here who let us know about Nicola Grace, Shane, who's in the audience over here. Good to see you, Shane. So Shane let us. We were sitting down to a meeting discussing some of the future plans for Organic Family and discussing some of the things we saw as challenges or hurdles that we were going to overcome. We had to move premises, and we had issues around connecting in a loving heart space with the local Gold Coast City Council, and we want to work on that, and we've got a lot of projects underway with that. We'd love help with all of that. So Shane just came up and said, hey, there's this friend of mine named Nicola, and she's got some really good ideas, and she's had some big success with her work in New Zealand, and he said you should give her, drop her a line. I said, well, do you have her details? And Shane said yes. And we said, well, let's call her right now. And we're in the meeting, and we just quickly rang, and Nicola answered, and then basically it was just all on right from there. We were just sharing what we were confronting, or what things were evolving for Organic Family, and some of the challenges, and Nicola kind of took it on board, and then gave us some great suggestions. Just helped us, again, just the more feedback we get from everyone, and so we've got a beautiful brain trust between all of us, and that was just amazing just to have that information and knowledge shared by Nicola that day, and then we've basically connected since then, and Nicola offered to come down and share this information with everyone. So I'd like you all to please thank Nicola for being here and welcome her to the Organic Family.
Apologies for not having the projector. It went a bit strange. Technology does go a bit strange around me when I do this work. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and why I'm talking about what I'm talking about becoming a quantum game changer, how I discovered it. But first I'd really like to know who I'm talking to, what the level of awareness is, where you've come from, and just have a little bit of an interaction time to start with, and just see what you're at and see what your expectations are. So if any of you are game enough to put your hand up and tell me, why have you come here today? What was it in the publicity that you were really excited about? What it is you're wanting to get out of the day? Something like that. Who wants to go first? You want to go first? Come on, don't be shy. It just helps me gauge where we're at so that I can come in at the right level. Paul, yes, hello sir.
I just want to learn something new.
You want to learn something new? Yeah. Awesome, great. Anybody else? Call it out. Yes. Anything that evolves consciousness. Great, we're definitely going to be doing that today. Anybody else? You all gave up your Saturday. Thank you so much. So you came here to get something. I want to know what it is. Yes. Developing sensory organs. Definitely developing your perception and your awareness and all of that sort of good stuff. Yes. So you came for that? Most of that happens this afternoon, but I'll talk about that in a moment. Yes. To raise your vibration, that's definitely going to happen. That's happening now, happening all the time. Anybody else want to share why they came here today? Hi, Shane. Hi.
Basically, to learn how we can work together to maximise our potential to create the reality that we want. As you know, there's an ultimate reality that's pressing down more and more, and starting to what we want to create as a community. So I think unless we learn, unless we step to the next level of togetherness and heart-space operation, just joining together as one unit, dropping the individuality and really becoming a true tribe with one focus, learning from the wonderful how we can push against something that's been going on for thousands of years and people are doing it around the world. It's just our turn, I think, and feel to learn how to do that. And it's really exciting.
Awesome.
And it's time for us to step up, release the shackles here of small thinking that we're not powerful, that we're not enough, that we're afraid of authority, all the programming of the system has done a wonderful job of putting into place, and they do a great job, and I honour them for that. They're very good at what they do. And it's just us, it's just our turn to learn how to deprogram and overcome that. So I'm so grateful that you're here, because we really need your knowledge on how to, for this group, to follow in the steps of others. We are pioneers, but we're also following the steps of another group that have already done this. And I think that's something to bear in mind. We can succeed too, but others can't succeed.
You're welcome. We are definitely going to move past fear of authority today. That is my wish, at least anyway. So that's actually a great segue, Shane, into the next slide, and I do apologise that it's not this great big huge thing behind me on the screen, but this is what we've got. Why become a quantum game changer, and what on earth is a quantum game changer? Well, number one, it sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? That was the name of today, and you all came here because of it. So it sounds like, oh, that's interesting. That sounds kind of cool. One of the biggest reasons why I think we need to be coming into being a quantum game changer, which is the application of the discoveries of quantum physics into our real existence on a day-by-day basis, is because if you look out at the world, in this little tribe here, we've got this little beautiful utopia that's building and developing, but when we look out into the world, there's a whole lot of crap happening. And I am an activist, so every now and then I will say some words that the children won't be able to hear. But there's a lot of crap happening. And how many of you, when you look at it, your heart breaks, or it feels sad, or you feel powerless? How many of you have that experience of feeling powerless when you see all the crap that's going on in the world? How many of you feel powerless when you see all of the authorities doing absolutely nothing about it, right? And how many of you feel powerless when all of a sudden those authorities come towards you and infringe on your rights, right? So that's another big reason to become a quantum game changer, because it takes you to the source of your power, where it actually is. 101 reasons to become a game changer, but for me personally, it's really all about coming into the truth of who I am, coming into the nature of our reality, what that reality is made up of, so that we can make the reality that we want to, wake up to ourselves and be in nirvana. That's kind of like really what it's all about for me. So, is that visible? Not really. So it's just kind of there for me. So you're in the right place if you are wanting a consciousness shift, if you are wanting to raise your vibration, if you are wanting to step into the more authentic you, if you are wanting to access the source of your power, if you are wanting to learn the actual science of how we're creating the world reality that we're living in, as well as how you're creating your personal reality. I'm going to start the day by going through some of the scientific discoveries, how I came across this, and a real world example of how I've implemented this and what's happened as a result of it. And we are going to be doing some processes of awakening this morning, and then in the afternoon we're going to go full on doing quantum activism. Who has heard of the book Quantum Activist, or seen the movie The Quantum Activist? Nobody. So you guys are really new to it. Does anybody understand what the word quantum means, or what quantum physics is? Yes, sir.
Quantum is a level of science that is a step up from Newtonian. Newtonian is that if you hit a bat with a ball, it'll go into the same spot every time. It's Newtonian. Quantum is that there's like the ball could go in a number of different places, and each place has got a percentage of the possibility of happening, and every possibility exists until a result is manifest in that moment. It's interactive, and it brought a lot of spirituality to a science that physics being that has not been there for mostly Newtonian time.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. I mean, that's absolutely the fact of it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. It's like matter is only potential. It's not reality. It exists as potential, and that's where we begin to step into our power when we know that. So instead of looking out of ourselves and go, oh my goodness, that is what it is, we can go, you know what, it's only a potential, and I have the ability to shift the potential based on my perception and based on my consciousness and awareness. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that today. You're in the wrong place if you want to prove me wrong. You're in the wrong place if you want to be skeptical. If you're in the wrong place if you want to remain separate. You're in the wrong place if you just want a data download and you don't want to wake up. Because this is about raising consciousness, raising awareness, raising your vibration, and essentially waking up to the truth of who we are. I'm using the pathway of quantum physics. I used to use the pathway of A Course in Miracles. I was a teacher of A Course in Miracles for about 9 years, and I now have a very different view about all of that. But quantum science is coming up with some phenomenal discoveries about the nature of reality, who we are, where our source of power is. So if you want to cling on to Newtonian physics, which says that we are separate and no two things exist in cohabitation with each other, you're definitely in the wrong place. When you become a quantum game changer, essentially what that gives you is your power back. It gives you that place where you can go inside and you go, I can go inside myself, and this is where I can access the true source of my ability to create my reality. Now, if it is true that I am creating my reality all the time, and you're creating your reality all the time, and you're creating your reality all the time, how many know this to be true? How many understand that we create our own reality by the thoughts we think and how we see things? Great, most of you, if not all of you. Some of you might have been shy there and not wanted to put your hand up. So if it's true that you're creating your reality, I'm creating my reality, it must be true that we, or the I as you will understand, which is the we, and I'll explain a little bit more about that later, are creating the world reality. How is that happening? You're going to learn about that, and you're going to learn how to reverse it so we can go into nirvana. What's also possible when you become a game changer is you just have so much more fun. I mean, when you realise this is just a game, and when you wake up to the power of yourself as a creator, and you learn how to move atoms, and you learn how to take matter and go, that's just a potential, I'm going to observe differently, so I'm going to see a different potential, and then whammo, you've changed the world. It's fun. I mean, what other game would you want to play? You wouldn't want to play the game of limitation. You wouldn't want to play the game of having this authority figure over you telling you what you can do, what you can't do, right? You would want to have fun. So I think that being a quantum game changer is not only about, in our heart of hearts, because a lot of us are star seeds, we've come here with a very clear mission to wake up humanity, to wake up the planet and to bring the planet into what's been called the new earth or the fifth dimension. So we, in our heart of hearts, know that there's a different way, that there's a better way, and here's our way that we can actually bring that change about. Because let's face it, every other way's taking too long, don't you think? Transcendental meditation, they've been sitting down trying to meditate on world peace for decades. It's just taking too long. So this is where it's at, baby. So who am I? Look, just on a professional level, I am actually a paid professional speaker. I speak in the corporate world, I speak to audiences all over the world, and I'm also a psychic, intuitive business coach. That's my business. That's how I make money to pay my bills. I'm also an author, and I'm an award-winning strategist, and I'm going to tell you all about that because that's just kind of like the most exciting thing that ever happened to me. And I've had these amazing successes in life, and I've also had some doozy, big, huge failures. I've had to overcome cancer twice. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the miraculous healing that I had, and that's how the first time I came over it, overcame cancer, and I've been bankrupted. So I've been through that whole authority system pressing down on me, making sure that I ended up with absolutely nothing, losing absolutely everything, even my dignity. So been high, been low, been in the middle, and I know it all. No, I don't know it all, so that's not what I meant to say. I've been through it all, is what I meant to say. I definitely do not know it all. But that's not the really interesting thing about me. And I'm going to have a go at taking this off so I can look around. The most interesting thing about me, as I see it, and I think that some of you have probably had these experiences yourself, if not all of you, is that really weird, cool shit has happened. When I was a teenager, I had this experience of being lifted up out of my body. I passed through the wall into my parents' bedroom where my girlfriends were staying because we had a slumber party. And I remember having a conversation with them, simultaneously having a conversation with the girls in the other room. And then the next morning I went, did I dream that? Was that a reality? Did that really happen? And when I talked to the girls, they both had a remembrance of the time that I was there, same time, sitting at the end of the bed, having the conversation. They all remembered the conversations. So I was having two different conversations in two rooms simultaneously. How does that happen? So that morning I just went, well, that's kind of cool. I think I can pass through walls. I don't know how I did it, but I think I can do that. I was a champion gymnast as well. So a couple of years after that experience, I was trying out for the Commonwealth Games, and I had relentless practice every single day. I would come home from school and there would be this time frame that I would have to do my practice, have a shower, and then sit down for dinner with the family. So here I am doing my practice, and the next thing you know, I do my backflip, and the backflip's usually the last thing you do, practicing your backflips. And I practiced my backflip, I went back, and all of a sudden I just went all the way back to the room. I felt myself fly through the room, and I landed, and then my mum came in and she says, you're late, it's time for dinner. And I went, I haven't had my shower yet. My routine hasn't lasted any longer than it usually does. I've done everything right. I've got another half an hour before dinner. I looked at the clock, and the clock's dinner time. How did that happen? And then I went, I think I was 13 at the time, 12 maybe, and then I went, oh cool, I can bend time and space. Now that is a really weird idea for a 12 or 13-year-old to have, wouldn't you think? Really, really weird. What's the next weird thing that happened to me? Oh yeah, as I progressed in my late teens, coming into my early 20s, I was doing these clearing processes with somebody that was helping me just deal with my everyday emotions. And I would get so light, like my body would literally go to light, that I would kind of feel like I was invincible. And I know that psychologists would say I was going loony, and they would call me bipolar, and they would put me in a loony bin. But what would happen is I'd be driving along, I'd be driving up a mountain to go home, and this one particular day I was behind a big sheep truck. and there was only one lane coming this way, another lane coming that way, and I could see through the mountain and go, oh, there's no cars coming on the other side. So I stepped out with my car, I went on the other side of the road, up the hill, all the way around the mountain on the other side of the road, and then I pulled over into the left-hand side of the road because I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt nothing was coming on the other side. Well, how is that possible? You might call me crazy, but I had no thoughts. It was just like, I'm going to do this. So all these little things that kept happening to me were just little hints that we're capable of more than we think we are. We're not limited to our body. It's like universe opens up and gives us this vortex of experience to give us a clue that there is more going on than we know, that we're capable of more than we're capable of. And then that got put to the test the first time I had leukemia, and I am going to talk a lot about that this afternoon because the way that awakening happened in me, I learnt how to dissolve emotion, learnt how to dissolve belief, and I then learnt how to dissolve things that were happening in matter that I didn't want and recreate them. You're going to learn that process this afternoon, so I won't talk too much about that. But needless to say, I had cancer. I was not going to go down the track of having radiotherapy and what have you, but that just wasn't an option for me, and it never would be. And then this huge, amazing awakening experience had happened. And then I really got it. I went, wow, this is something we're not being told who we are. We're not being told what we're capable of. Something else is going on, and that led me to do a search on, what it was that I was missing, what it was that I wasn't being told. Since then, I've learnt how to dissolve moles, because the second cancer that I had was melanoma, and that was about 7 or 8 years ago, and they told me I'd only live for 3 years. And I've learnt now that I can observe something on my body and then have it dissolve, and that's something I'm still in the practice of. I can't do it all the time. But that's the ability that we have. We can look at a mole, we can look at something, and we can observe it differently, and it can become something different. And I've seen and had experiences of moles on my body disappearing because I've looked at it, I've done something in my mind, and then later when I've gone to show a friend, hey, what do you think of this mole? Do you think it's something I should be worried about? It's gone, it's completely disappeared, but there'll be a little bit of a scar there. So the body leaves a scar, so I know I'm not going crazy. Now, here's the thing that you're all going to get really excited about, especially for your community, because we'll have a look at how we can apply some of these principles for the real threat that you've got going on with the council. In my bio, it says I saved $1 billion industry from ruin. And it's true, I did. I didn't do it on my own. I had help for that. And I did that not only because I was a good activist and a good campaigner, but I used these quantum principles that I'm going to be teaching you today. So what today is about awakening. So forget everything that you read in the brochure or on Facebook. You're going to learn all of that. I'm going to teach you how you move atoms, how you move matter, all of that kind of stuff. You're going to get the principles of it. It takes practice and practice and practice to be able to do it, but at least I'm going to get you started on Act 1, which is the practice and the opening of that. And it's really about you awakening to who you are, awakening to how reality, or this reality that we call reality, is made, and how to shift it and change it so that it's a better world for everybody, because that's a really cool game to play. Does that sound good? So I want to tell you a little bit about what to expect. Carl Sagan, has anybody heard of him? Really good activist against the nuclear movement, really, really good activist. He said, one of the saddest lessons of history is this: if we've been bamboozled long enough, we tend to reject any evidence of the bamboozle. For a very long time, Christianity, Judaism, any kind of religion, even spirituality, has taught us that we do not have access to our source unless we go through a priest, unless we behave in a certain way, and unless we belong to a certain religion or a faith. We've been so bamboozled that even if you grew up an atheist, even if you grew up knowing there's a source, it's still implanted in you because a good percentage of your brain has been inherited from your ancestors. So you're still thinking this way, right? So when I present to you all of this new information, for some of you, you're going to reject it. And that's okay, that's fine. Some of you are going to hate me. Some of you are going to want to attack me. And maybe not. But I've had that happen. Because it's so confronting. And you look back on your life and you go, wow, you could get angry with the way our education system has taught us that we're so small. You could get angry that the authorities have kept this information from us. You could get angry at all sorts of things. So we just want to leave all of that behind, because this is a real opportunity to just go, stuff it. Let's just be who we are, and let's get about creating the game that we want to be playing in. So it all began for me in 2004 to 2006 when I created a charitable trust called Health Freedom New Zealand. Has anybody heard of the Health Freedom movement? Okay. So in 2004, the governments of New Zealand and Australia signed a treaty. In actual fact, it was the Minister of Health and the Minister of Health and Ageing, I think, here in Australia. They got together and they signed a treaty, and they said, hey, let's get together, let's do away with the TGA, the Therapeutic Goods Administration. How many of you are aware that we have a Therapeutic Goods Administration that administers over natural therapies and drugs? Let's do away with that. And let's do away with New Zealand's MedSafe. And wouldn't it be great if we formed a corporation and we'll let that corporation regulate drugs and natural therapies? Now we'll set that corporation up in Australia, and we'll set it up with a managing director. This wording was all in the treaty. You can read it for yourself. And the managing director is going to make up the regulations, and he or she can make up any kind of regulations that they want. We'll have it funded mainly by the pharmaceutical companies, just because of the way they put the funding together. And this corporation set up in Australia is going to regulate Australia, natural therapies, which you call complementary medicines, and drugs, and it's also going to do it over in New Zealand. That legislation passed in Australia. And it had passed 2 of 3 readings in New Zealand. And it was about to pass into law, which meant wherever this corporation was going to be regulating our natural therapies. It was going to be regulating natural therapists. It was going to be regulating doctors' medicines and medical equipment. Has everybody got that? A corporation. See, when I went to university, we got taught that was fascism. So we were 2 weeks out, and I'm finding myself, I'd just been diagnosed with melanoma. I'd had an operation to get the thing cut out of my leg. And I'm sitting in my office with my naturopath going, okay, from this, I need to make sure that this doesn't happen again. She starts telling me about this legislation. And she said, were you aware of it? And I said, no, I've been away from the country for 9 years. I'm only just hearing about it now. So she gets me up to speed with it, what's going on, and then she leaves the room. And being a visionary, being an intuitive, all of a sudden this vision appeared. And I just looked at it, and I saw that I was looking into a hologram, and I went, that didn't happen. I don't understand it. And she's going, yeah, the bill is almost passed. It just needs the administration team to pass it, and then it becomes law. And I'm going, no, that did not happen. And so I started saying, did they do this? Have they done that? Because I saw this strategy in front of me, and I go, well, we could use this strategy and perhaps beat it back. And she said, you're a bit too late because they're going to be voting in 2 weeks' time. And I said, you just get me a meeting with the natural health industry, and we'll go from there. So within a few days, I'm going to this meeting, and it's mainly owners of natural health manufacturing businesses. And I give them my circle the wagon strategy, and I say, look, you know, this is what I think we should do. I think we need to take a multi-pronged approach. And one of the guys said, no, it's impossible. It's too late now. We're going to have to write a compromise. So they're starting to talk about writing a compromise to present to Parliament. And I said, well, why is it too late? And they go, because the decision is already made. They just need to pass the paperwork through administration, and that's scheduled for 2 weeks. And I kid you not, this is how I responded. I went, that will not happen. "24 hours later, I get a phone call saying it's been postponed for 6 months. So I went, great, we've got 6 months. Let's get it together. Let's do this and let's do that. So phase 1 was to just get everybody out on the street and start protesting, because as you know, part of our democracy requires people to get out on the street to say these are the numbers that object to your policy. That is part of our democracy. It's not just something that hippies do. Everybody who wants to, you know, be in a democratic process needs to use that as a way of telling government we're not happy with this policy. So that's the first thing we did. I set out doing this huge campaign of educating and getting people to get out on the street. And you know, New Zealand's very much like Australia. We got it pretty good, so there was quite a bit of apathy and there weren't a lot of people showing up. I knew a lot of people cared about this, but when it came to the protesting and using that part of our democratic process, nobody was showing up. We had like 300 people on the first day. So I had to tell a story that this was a movement that was growing in order for the government to start taking us seriously. So I started doing all sorts of quantum activism, and one of the things that I did was starting to put press releases out. And this is how I started doing the press releases. Because we would put press releases out and they wouldn't get covered. So if nothing goes in the media, most of New Zealand goes, it's not happening. So you try to tell somebody something, I know this happens here in Australia too, you tell somebody and they go, I didn't see that on the news. So if it's not on the news, it's not happening. And if it's on the news, it's happening the way they say it's happening on the news, right? That's what I was up against. So I started writing all these press releases and we were getting whitewashed. Nobody was covering us. We had no ability to speak to the masses to talk about the problems that this legislation was going to cause. So I started writing press releases, and I'm a pacer. When I walk and when I'm thinking, I'm pacing. And I'm pacing up and down, and at the time I didn't really know what I was doing or the power that was in what I was doing. And I'm pacing, and I've got the government in front of me. And I'm telling them, I'm giving them my 2 cents worth. I am telling them, here, this is a vision. I'm giving them a vision. This is what New Zealand is going to look like if you pass this legislation. This is what New Zealand's going to look like if you don't pass it and if you support the natural health industry. Do you really want to be a part of turning New Zealand into a fascist country? And I'm pacing and I'm lecturing them and I'm telling them everything that I want to tell them. And I'm also talking to the media. I'm going, this is an anti-vitamin bill. This is a bill that's against vitamins. It's against supplements. It's against people taking care of their health. Is that something you want to support? And then I would start lecturing them and I would say, you know what, I know you as a journalist. You became a journalist because you wanted to cover the truth. You wanted to be part of the democratic process because a free press is a part of our democratic process. And I understand that you're not free anymore. I understand that you have to pay homage to the corporations and that you have to pay homage to the advertisers. I understand you've got a thumb on you that says you can't cover this. This is a white elephant in the room. But I know in your heart of hearts, you really want to be like those journalists that did that whole thing with Watergate, don't you? That's why you signed up to be a journalist. So I'm pacing in my room, talking to these people as if they were already there. And I'm saying, look, the anti-vitamin bill, by the way, wasn't a soundbite that I created. It was something that came from my team. And I'm saying, this is an anti-vitamin bill. And so I write my press release with all of that information loaded into every word in the press release, because I didn't say any of that in the press release. The press release goes out. We didn't get a phone call. We didn't get any coverage. It just went out there into nowhere. But that night I turned the news on. #1 news story. The anti-vitamin bill is getting increasing amounts of opposition. So somewhere it got heard. And I went, I don't know what just happened, but I'm going to keep doing that. So I kept writing out press releases. And we started to grow the movement. Then not a lot of people were showing up on the street. That we just did not get the numbers that we needed to show government that we were a little bit of a threat. So I came up with this great idea with somebody to bring in some red umbrellas, and I had everybody do the red umbrellas. And can you see that there? No? Here we go. So what the red umbrellas did is it made everybody, sort of stand big widths apart. But when the media took photos of it, it looked like there were thousands and thousands of people marching. And in actual fact, we counted there was only 800. So we instigated this whole red umbrella thing. I got everybody of my team to go down to Queen Street one day and with their red umbrellas and keep crossing the road. Keep crossing the road. I want to put into the mind of people that this red umbrella is a symbol for freedom. It's a symbol for health freedom. And the more we can get that into the consciousness, the more powerful it's going to be when we instigate phase 3, which was to have a big national rally, and everybody signed a postcard that had a red umbrella. And on the red umbrella, under the red umbrella, we told them exactly what we wanted them to do. That red umbrella got sent to Parliament, so come Tuesday morning when everybody's opening up their letterboxes, there's all these postcards with these red umbrellas. There was news stories with all these red umbrellas, people marching down the street, and the newscast was saying thousands of people marched nationwide, and in actual fact there was only about 800 because each centre counted. So we were manipulating and using and doing whatever we could to make this movement feel better be better than what it was. And then the next phase is that the government got their they got a newspaper wrapper that had the red umbrella on it, and Alison Rowe, who's a very big celebrity sports star in New Zealand, and she was talking about how bad this bill was, and so we had, like I said, we had this circle the wagon strategy, so it was a multi-tiered approach. Then this miracle happened. I kept pacing, I kept putting my press releases out, and I'm pacing my room, and I'm doing my quantum activism, and I'm putting information out into those electrons that are going out from my body. And then I got interviewed on Sunday, which is an award-winning Sunday news program, and they asked me what did I think this legislation was like. And I said, this legislation is like the government are leading the lambs to slaughter. Now that's not something that you say to a Kiwi, is it? It's just not a good thing to say. But that soundbite got picked up by the media. So come Tuesday morning, they've got the parliamentarians have got all these postcards with these blinking red umbrellas on it, and then they've got me there being broadcast on the news like every hour, leading the lambs to slaughter, leading the lambs to slaughter, leading the lambs to slaughter, leading the lambs to slaughter. That's all that got heard for a whole week. And I'm just going, oh, please don't pull the program. Please, because that was just the advertising for it. Please don't pull the programming. I'm doing everything I can to stabilise the programming not being pulled. The program was aired. 2 days later, the government announced defeat. So, yeah, that means that there is no longer that bill in play. So then the good thing about that was that we had some room to move. You and I know that pharmaceutical industry will not stop until we stop them to decimate this industry, because that's clipping into their profits. The treaty still existed. So even though the legislation had been defeated, the treaty still existed. I left the organisation and moved on, came to Australia actually. So I had to keep doing the quantum activism to make sure that treaty never got reenacted. Just before December, the treaty got thrown out by the New Zealand government. So even though I did, yeah, exactly. Let's have a big clap for that, eh? So even though I wasn't protesting, I wasn't sending out press releases for the last 5 years actually, and I wasn't actually doing anything. All I was doing is I was keeping on educating through using quantum activism, everybody involved. And what was really funny about it is the minister that actually announced that they were going to do away with the treaty altogether said words exactly, word for word, of what I had been putting out there on the radio waves. So that's possible, right? We can learn those things and have some really cool crap happen. So then what happened, and unfortunately, again, I apologise, you can't see this. This is a Google search. So the whole thing is that I made history and I got an award, and all that sort of stuff. It was all really nice. What was really cool for me was that the rest of the world started calling bills like this that were going to infringe on people's right to choose how they heal themselves. They started calling them anti-vitamin bills. So if you see the top here in Google, 2005, it's got Health Freedom New Zealand, which was my organisation, talking about protesting the anti-vitamin bill. 5 years later, in 2010, there's a bill very similar being passed through Congress in Australia, in America, and they call it the anti-vitamin bill. So the soundbite got out there and it started taking form of its own. And what's really cool is the quantum activism I did on the symbol of the red umbrella has become a symbol worldwide for freedom. We've got sex workers out there protesting with their red umbrellas. We've got human rights activists protesting with their red umbrellas. We've got workers' rights protesting with red umbrellas. We've got people who are fighting for the oceans and the fish in the ocean. How does that happen? Who wants to explain that to me? Who's got an idea about how that happens? Goes into global consciousness?
Yeah, people resonate with a good idea and they follow it.
Exactly, they resonate with a good idea.
Basically, it's four quadrants to all experience: the internal individual, the external individual, the external individual, the external individual. And once you have something that's gone through all those four quadrants, it's harder to
Yeah, you're talking about creating a critical mass through those four quadrants, and all of a sudden it comes up, filters up. Cool. Isn't that cool? Would you like to be able to learn how to do that?
Yeah.
How many of you have got pet projects that you feel really powerless to do anything, but you would like to just sit and watch the news and start to observe it differently and then have a different outcome? Great. Present time, one of the things that I'm finding really difficult to deal with is the Bali 9 up against the firing squad. I have been praying my off for that on that one. I have been sending out electrons of clemency. I have been sending out waves to politicians to have bright ideas, inspirational ideas, influential powers over the Indonesian government. I have been saying to the Indonesian government, you know what, it's going to be far worse for you to do this than it is not to do it. I know you need to save face. Please find a way to save face. And then I've just been going, divine inspiration for them to save face, because that's what they're holding on to, right? They don't want to lose face. But and I've just been doing this, and every time I sit and do it, I turn the news on, it's been delayed. And they went to Death Island day before yesterday, which means within 3 days they're up against the firing squad. What happened yesterday? It's been delayed. What also happened yesterday is all of a sudden I'm listening to politicians coming up with new ideas. Right? I'm going to tell you how that happens and why that happens and why that you can do it and how to do that, because we need to do that. And we might even practice together, because one of the big fantasies I had is that it got delayed because the angels are really supporting us as a group to put some group energy into it.
When you said that's not going to happen, is that like a deep knowing or a objective intention, or is it a belief or a strong emotion? How is that?
Simultaneously, all of the above. Yeah. Conviction, you will learn this afternoon, is where the shift occurs. So nobody's heard of the quantum activist, Ami Goswami? Amit Goswami. He's amazing. Really, really good documentary to download of what's called Quantum Activist. He believes that quantum activism will save civilization. That within those principles we have the ability to change the experience that humanity is having, to change the human game. Oh, by the way, I'm going to email everybody out this PowerPoint presentation. I put that on the Facebook, so if you've signed up on the page, you'll get that emailed to you on Monday. If you haven't, I'll show you how you can do that so I can send it out to you. Margaret Mead, I really love her. If you feel that it needs to take a lot of people to change the world and change the civilization, this is a really good quote from her. She says, "Never believe that a few caring people can't change the world, for indeed that is all that ever have. It has only ever been a few good people that have made massive changes in the world, and everybody else has just followed along." Right? So, it would be great if everybody could do what I do. It would be great if everybody could do what you do. It would be great if everybody could get hold of this information, and then we could get the word out there and we could really make some shift and create a completely different game on the planet. So somebody said to me, you know what, you need to teach every activist in the world how to do this. You need to teach every social entrepreneur, which is my business. I teach social entrepreneurs. You need to teach them this, because how many projects for change are being halted because of the old guard, because of fear, because of money, people attached to money and power and what have you. So if everybody got hold of this, we could really forge some change. So he forced me, I mean not literally forced me, but he forced me to take a good look at what were the success principles, so I could pass those success principles on to everybody else. And it came down to 7 habits. There were 7 habits that I habitually did on a daily basis. There were 10 strategies I implemented, and there were 12 laws of nature that I worked with, that I knew about, the 12 laws of physics. And all together, they came together as a synergy to create the outcome that they created. You're going to be learning about that first habit, doing the inner work. We are going to do some inner work. I am going to show you how to contact some emotion that's inverted, which is really just your personal power that has been inverted and limited, and bust it up and dissolve it and dissolve the beliefs that they're attached to it. I'm going to teach you how to dissolve that. That's a process I learned when I learned how to dissolve the consciousness of cancer. You're going to learn that today. And then you're going to learn how to apply it. We'll apply it, if we get a chance, we'll apply it to the situation that you've got going on with the council right now. We'll apply it to what's going on in Indonesia, and then we're going to all collectively agree on some problem in the world and see what we can do. Just have fun with it, see what we can do with the information. And then watch the news this week. Listen to the news tonight. Watch the papers and just see what happens. Okay, so now we're going to go down the rabbit hole. How many people feel like they're already down the rabbit hole? How many people have no idea what I mean by a rabbit hole? No, you all know about What the Bleep and the rabbit hole? You don't? Have you not watched the movie What the Bleep? So, What the Bleep has a concept in there going, let's go down the rabbit hole. So as they go down the rabbit hole, it's really, let's go away from the illusion and get down to the truth and the nitty-gritty of what's really going on. And they use that analogy also in The Matrix. Have you watched any of the Matrix movies? So taking the red pill is going down the rabbit hole. So Shakespeare said a really curious thing. If it was Shakespeare who said it, because now there's some controversy that maybe I was going to say maybe Kevin Bacon said it, there's 7 degrees of separation. Francis Bacon it was. All the world is a stage, and the men and women on it merely players. They have their entrances and exits, and one man in his time plays many parts. All the world is a stage. What do you think he meant by that? Right? We're just playing a game here. So there's a guy called Robert Schinfeld who's written a book called Breaking Loose of the Money Game. Has anybody read that? You've read that book? Oh, fantastic. Well, you're going to love today. Really? That's awesome. Yeah, it's been out for a really long time. So he talks about the human experience is broken up into 3 phases. I look at it as broken up into acts because there are scenes within the acts. And the first phase of the game, or the first act of the game, is that we are infinite beings. How many know that? How many know that somewhere along the line you're an infinite being, right? And you have infinite power, right? How many of you are actually experiencing that? Every now and then, or all the time, or having glimpses of it? Yeah? Yeah, me too. I mean, I've done some really good stuff, but I can't hold it all the time. I'm still a novice. So, the idea being that we're pure consciousness, and pure consciousness decided, hey, let's have this experience of experiencing ourselves as being opposite. And let's have a really limiting experience and a really controlled experience so we can really forget that we actually even made that game up in the first place. And let's just see what it would actually take for us to wake up and remember, oh, I'm just dreaming. That's a game. That's not who I am. I'm really this infinite, powerful being that's creating everything that I'm seeing, right? That's act 1. That's act 1 of the game. That's the act that most of us are in. Most of us are in the game where we've forgotten who we are, we've forgotten what our power is, we don't know why we're here. Act 2 is that process of awakening, which many of you would probably consider yourselves to be part of. How many of you consider that you're on a path of awakening right now? Okay. So in Act 2, we go, okay, so I don't know about that narcissistic consciousness back there that decided this really sucky game, because right down here is this projected imagery. It sucks. I don't like limitation. I don't like control. I don't like anybody controlling me. I want to remember who I am. So we're in this process of awakening. So we're transitioning into awakening. But in order to do that, you need to be practicing creating. You're going to create something. So you've got to create something better without limitation. That's Act 2. And Act 3 is full-blown freedom. Still within this confine, but you've got freedom. So I'm going to talk a lot more about those acts as we go through. I just wanted to give you a big overview. In Act 1, we've left lots of clues. And I love Shakespeare. I love a lot of what Shakespeare has to say. There's a really fantastic scene right at the end of Midsummer Night's Dream. Who's heard of Midsummer Night's Dream, the play? It's a fun play, hey? And Puck says, if we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here while these visions did appear. And this weak and idle theme is no more yielding, but a dream. So gentles, do not reprehend. If you pardon, we will amend, else the Puck a liar call. Give me your hands if we be friends, and Robin will restore amends. So when I read that, I went, oh my goodness, he's talking about the awakening. He's talking about forgiveness. If we pardon, like, let's not get angry about it. Let's just forgive and move on. We'll make amends and we'll be restored to our playground. And now let's create nirvana, because you're always going to be creating something. It's so cool. I really love it. But the first few lines are great. If we shadows have offended, think this, and it's going to be mended, that you're just dreaming. This is a dream. You're in a dream. And now it's all going to be mended, because you're going to go through this process of forgiveness and pardoning things and appreciating what's gone, move on before, and you're going to start awakening that you are actually the creator of the dream that you're in. So we've left ourselves clues. Now I think I'm going to need to do a flip chart for this, because I want to, not quite sure how I'm going to do this. Thank you. Actually, we're going to take a break. Perfect timing. Excellent. So we're going to take a break right now, just for 3 minutes. I've got a lot to download, and I really want to get you up out of your seats practicing some of these principles. So let's take a break, let's have a glass of water, whatever you need to do, and we'll be back in 3 minutes.